Welcome back to our last hour. Hopefully, we're still getting value out of it. Appreciate all of you attending all the way through. Obviously, again, tall ask on a Friday afternoon, but hopefully we can still provide value all the way to the end of the session. So what I'd also like to show you is, again, close this Word document, is a number of scripts here that I have made available for people. Let me get rid of all these windows so I can see what's going on here. So if I run PowerShell here, and there is a script called SecTest. Again, that's freely available. And what it's going to do, it's going to, again, give you a number of standard security tests that you can run on your environment to firstly see whether it does detect this, and then it is also useful to actually generate alerts so that you know things are flowing, through your environment. So, for example, if we go to this number 14 here and run that, it will again try and go to a phishing site here, and the idea here is that you'll see that it's popped up here with Smart Screen protecting us and taking the appropriate action here. So again, it's a good way to run this test on custom environments or your own environment to make sure that things are happening as expected, and also to generate some alerts so that you do know that all your stuff is working as expected. Now you'll find those basically in this repo here. So if you go into github.com/director/CIA/Office 365, link in the chat there, you'll see a range of scripts there that are available to you. A lot of the connection scripts, the email checking script, all of that is available and updated regularly. So go in and take advantage of that. So we talked about Defender. Let us talk about cloud app security. We get a number of different components here with cloud app security. There's actually 3 different versions. You get a basic version with Business Premium. You get the full version with E5, and there are some differences between them. Basically, this is an advanced way to see what's going on inside your tenant. It's going to allow you to do rules and also alerts. It's going to allow you to check for things like, impossible travel, malicious OAuth tokens, mass downloads, failed logins from, different locations and things like that. So extremely powerful in its monitoring capability. So let me again show you a production one that has actual data in it. So again, we can go to Cloud App Security. You'll see in here that I get the capability to not only set up alerts and create policies here. So here are all the alerts that have been generated on this demo tenant. So if I click on this, you'll see that I get a significant amount of information when it comes up here, and hopefully there we go. And it will tell me, for example, if I drill into this, it'll show me things like, the IP address, what the login was, what application it used, what user was targeted, what IP address it came from, where that's located in the world. Allow me to take actions like, tag it as a risky IP address, and so on. So I've got all of that reporting in there. That comes from basically policies. So these are the policies that I have created. You can use the standard templated ones, like mass download by a single user, or you can, for example, create your own. So this is an example of a custom one that I've created that tells me whenever a global admin logs in from outside a non-corporate IP address. So if I have a login from outside my office, it's going to tell me, and that's a good thing, because if my account gets compromised and I don't log in, someone's logging in from outside my office, then I'm going to be able to, again, get an email alert, but I can also, for example, suspend the user, require them to sign in again, and confirm that it is compromised. So you can create your own custom rules here, basically, to take action and report on any information you want. Now, the activity log here is really, really powerful in the fact that it will show me, basically, everything that's happened in my environment. So I can go in here and say, what's happened in, what's an application here? Let's go in and select Teams, and then, which users is it that I'm looking for, what raw IP address, so on. Select the activity. What do we got here? Team created, no. Team deleted, no. Download a file. So let's see if I downloaded a file from Teams today. So you're going to be able to drill in and get all of this information. And then what you can do if you want is you can also go in and save these as well. This logic here basically is what you can use for the alerts. All right. So again, we found that under activity log. As I've pointed out, the other option here is you can get information about your OAuth capabilities. So see what OAuth tokens you're using. And if you have the appropriate version, the full version of Cloud App Security or Defender for Cloud Apps, as they call it now, you're able to basically report on all the traffic to and from cloud-based applications. Now, normally you would connect a firewall to this and suck in the logs from your firewall to give you that. But thanks to Defender, the Defender endpoint will report into Defender for Cloud Apps and provide you that report. So you'll be able to see all the activity of all your endpoints that have Defender on them and be able to track, how much data they download, who's using them, where they're going. You can then go in and block applications and do all that sort of stuff. So one of the big benefits, which I think a lot of people are overlooking, is the fact that the Defender client is going to give you these enhanced capabilities with, all of these capabilities around with Microsoft. So what you get with Cloud App, with Microsoft 365 Business Premium is a subset of those features. So in essence, there are three different versions. Let me see if I can find it. So if you have a look at this blog post that I wrote a while back, it will let you know. So at the moment, what we get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium is something called Azure AD Cloud App Discovery. That allows you to look at the traffic. So the traffic component that I talked about, if you have the Defender client, it will see which apps are basically and where they're going and so on. The Microsoft Cloud App Security is the full version, and here are the comparisons between what you get. So again, the idea here is if you have the full version, you get all the features here, but if you have Azure AD Cloud App Discovery, which we get with Business Premium, we're only getting these capabilities here. So you really want this version. Now, as it turns out, as I recommended, is every single environment that you manage should have E5 as your admin license. Now, if it has E5 in it, then you get the full version of Cloud App Security in there, which allows you the full capabilities as a manager. And to manage the environment, that's fantastic. So again, my advice is to make sure that your admin license inside your customers' tenants has the full version of Cloud App Security in there. Now, the other thing I'll call out, which again is a E5 or a Azure AD P2 function, is something called privileged identity management. So what that means is I can escalate my permissions to a level that I desire, so I don't have to be a standing administrator of the environment. So I use this in my production environment. So let's go in here and I'll pull down my production environment. So if I go to, for example, Cloud App Discovery, Cloud App Security, in my production environment, you'll see that I haven't got the rights to do that. Now, that is because at the moment, the user that I have is just a normal user with normal non-admin privileges. But what I can use is something called privileged identity management. So I go into the tenant administration. You'll see here that I've got the ability to go into Azure AD privileged PIM or privileged identity management. Here are my roles. So you'll see that I can escalate to these two roles that I've already pre-configured. One of them is global admin. So if I want to become a global admin, I basically select that. I then put in the time period. So let's say just for another hour. Let's say I'm going to go in here and do admin stuff. And then I select activate. So that's now going to elevate the permissions for the user at the moment, the user that I am, allow me to be global admin for an hour. Now, the advantage of that is that it's all tracked, it's all audited. It will cut out, obviously, after the time period, so I don't have to worry about changing it. I can also set this up so it goes through a third party to approve, so I can send that through a manager or send that to somebody else to approve before it goes forward. I can force myself to do MFA. But for me, individually, what it means is I don't have to worry about my account being a global administrator at that level constantly. I can escalate and de-escalate, as required. Right. So now, if I open things up, and hopefully it hasn't cached the token, if I now go to Cloud App Security, you'll see that I can now log in. Okay, not log in. Okay, it doesn't want me to, so let me get back. But I might have to open this in an in-private browser session just to force the token to refresh, because again, the token still has the old security. So let's see if we can force this. But again, I can go in and do admin stuff in the in the environment now. Let's try once more, see what happens. And then when I'm finished, good. So there we go. We refresh the token, off we go. So this is now my production, which I couldn't get into before. So what I can do is, this is the discovery part. This is the part you get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So I can go in here and I can go in and say, these are my discovered apps. These are all the apps that are accessing stuff through the cloud. I can now sort by traffic. Unsurprisingly, you'll find that Exchange has the most amount of traffic. Its reputation is listed there, so I can now drill into this application and I can get more details, which user, which devices, which IP addresses I can block, I can manage, all of that. So again, this component here, this basically what you're seeing here comes with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. All right, so you can see the users that are in there. So it's a great monitoring tool. So anything that's in this menu here is what you effectively get with Business Premium. All right, so I can look at my devices. So I can look in here and see, okay, which device is downloading the most amount of data. So let's go and sort by the traffic. So you'll see that the Surface Pro 7, which is I'm on, has downloaded almost a gig and uploaded about 200 meg. Okay, so again, really, really powerful in what it's done. But the way I achieve that, like I said, is to use this privileged identity management. Now, when I'm finished, let's say that I want to cancel this before the time has expired. So this is an active assignment here. When it comes back, all I need to do is deactivate it, and that will then reduce that user back to being a normal user. So again, all this is integrated, all this is easy to set up. You can do this programmatically using PowerShell. It's all audited, it's all tracked. And again, think of that in the context of the Microsoft 365 Lighthouse. So you have, all your customer environments are at, your access to their environment is at a normal user. When you need to escalate, you go through PIM to escalate, and you can get the customer to approve that escalation. It's all audited, it's all tracked and all reported for you. There aren't many other providers out there that can do that. My question for you is to sit back and think, okay, how many third-party applications have I got sitting in my environment that are standing global admin? So I think third-party backup products, they're standing global admin of your environment. That's a huge security risk, supply chain, password guessing, and so on. So with PIM, you could set it up so that that is escalated at a certain time and de-escalated at a certain time only during the backup operation. So PIM is an extremely powerful capability. Okay. So again, you can transfer that through a third person or do whatever you want. Now, another Azure AD P2 feature, part of E5, is this, again, advanced identity protection. So it's going to take the identities, it's going to look at, a lot of signals and determine where's it come from, have I seen this before on the dark web? Has the password been used on the dark web? Is it using a Tor browser? What's the risk? So what it does, it goes and assigns or determines a sign-in risk, and then again, medium, low, and high, and then you can act on that in your conditional access, in your device policies, and so on. So this is going to give you far more detail about the logins into your environment, the risks that they're going through, the levels. So you can still pass MFA, but you could be logging in from a risky environment. So maybe details have been stolen, or a MFA token has been intercepted. We're going to get additional information about that. So again, Azure AD Identity Protection is part of E5, not part of Microsoft 365 Business. Why? Again, I will reiterate the value of putting an E5 SKU for your management environment into your customers to give you this capability across that tenant to view and see all that information. Now, to me, the ultimate tool at the top of the tree for all of this monitoring is Azure Sentinel. Okay, so Azure Sentinel is where all the signals are going to be fed from all the different locations, and it's going to then run analytics across, that information. Now, the good thing about Azure Sentinel is you only pay for what you use. All right, so you can start off with effectively free connectors and free data, and then you can scale it out basically, from there. So if we call up this tenant, okay, so this is another demo tenant that I've got. This has Azure Sentinel configured. So if we go in here and just have a quick look at Azure Sentinel. All right, so we go into a Microsoft Sentinel, as they call it now. Okay, so you'll see in essence, this is the nice summary I've got. You'll see I've got suspicious activity. So if I go in here and have a look at that, see what was suspicious. So a failed login, administrative from a non-admin address. So that's because I'm logged in as a virtual machine, failed logins. So it's aggregating these all together. It's telling me what IP address it's coming from. So let's select that IP address. It's going to break that out and tell me what IP address, what the data is around that. Okay, so you can see that's coming from Exetel. All right, so again, is that something I need to worry about? So I can go in here and look at my incidents, right? And let's go in here and select that and go assign to me. And where's the option here? Oh, that's off the page. Let me minimize and maximize that once again. There we go. So let me go into unassigned, assign to me. It doesn't want to. Anyway, so the idea I would assign it to me. I would go in here and say closed, for example, and set that to a true positive and apply that. Right, so I can go in here and look at all of these items here and make decisions about it. Now, the data connectors are listed here. You can create your own custom ones, but you'll see out of the box you get connections to the Microsoft environment, but also third-party AWS, Barracuda, Trend. All of those stuff is there. So that's feeding data in, pulling that data from various locations. It then runs these analytic rules across that. So in this case, 149. So it's looking for incidents here. So if I drill into one of these, let me find one of these that illustrates this. So effectively, these rules are basically queries. They're basically going to run queries across the data. Now, once it's done that data, it's going to report into an overview, tell me if there's anything I need to worry about, like that one I just selected. It's also going to give me the capability to view this as a workbook. All right, so I can go in here and, for example, let's have a look at Exchange. And these are Power BI style workbooks that you can customize, you can edit, you can update, you can pull from the community. So again, here's my Exchange information here, and I can go up the top here and say, let's say the last 24 hours. So what's happened in the last 24 hours? again, you'll be able to see all that information printed out and so you've got lots and lots of individual workbooks in there that you can pull and view and display information. And again, the other option here is we can go in and query the the low level logs. We can actually go in and do the logging and view all that sort of thing. So extremely, extremely powerful tool in what it's capable of. But it gets better than that. So let me show you my production environment. So that was a demo tenant. This is the production environment. So let's go into the Azure stuff there. Go into Sentinel once again, and what you'll see here is that what I've connected into this is not only my production environment, which is this one here. So this is the one you saw before with 700,000, 800,000 odd events in here. The other one that I've joined here is this demo one. So if we click in here, you'll see that I've joined my demo one, which is the one we were just looking at there. Now what I can do is I can now join these two together or aggregate the data, and now I can view all the incidents. So now I've got a single pane of glass across all the incidents in all of my environments that are receiving signals from every single device and every single item in one single pane of glass. Now, it gets even better than that, because what I can also do, if you go in here and have a look, is I've also got the capability to start doing automation. So what I've set up in this case is I've got a number of custom automations for informational alerts. So if I get an informational alert about messages containing malicious URLs, I don't really see that as an incident because it's just informational. So what I've done here is I've set an automation rule to automatically close that. So again, we've got the capability to do that automation component as well in there if we want. So really, Azure Sentinel is the top of the tree here when it comes to gathering all the signals. Once you look at things like Defender for endpoint feeding signals in there, Defender for Office 365, you can have all your security logs from your devices going in there, and creating reports, workbooks, dashboards. All of that is quite simple to do. Now, obviously, one of the concerns that people have is around cost. So this is the demo tenant, which is sucking in 25,000 or so events, and these are all available. I've connected up the Microsoft included connectors here. All right, so let's go in here and have a look at our cost analysis and go in, and hopefully looks as though they've updated this as well. And I can drill in and have a look at the the individual cost of the item here. Okay, so they've changed this a little bit here. So let's have a look here. We don't want to go by resource groups. We want to go by services. Maybe it's cost analysis I want to go into. Maybe this is the better option. Yes, sorry, this is the better option here. So what I want to do is let's have a look at the cost by service. Let me have a look at the last month's, the last invoice. Okay, and let us view the cost by resource. Actually, sorry, where is it? I want to view the cost by resource. There we go. Cost by resource, I think it is. There we go. And a bit hard to see, but if I go down here, there's basically a log analytics workspace. Might be a bit hard to see, but at the end of the day, there's Azure Sentinel. So that's the service name, and you can see it's costing me last month a grand total of 52 cents. So to set up Azure Sentinel and to enable all the standard Microsoft connectors, Azure AD, Office 365, Exchange Online, is costing you a grand total of 52 cents a month. And you can then view and connect all of those into a single console in your own environment, so you can see what's happening across every single tenant. You can automate across that whole environment. So Again, the cost of this is negligible. And to me, it's a no-brainer. You should be putting this Azure Sentinel with these default settings as a standard best practice in every single tenant that you work with as a value add, right? Because there's no effective cost to you. Now, what you can also do, for example, is you can then subscribe to public threat intelligence data. These are known bad IP addresses, domains that are bad. That will bring the information into your environment, and it will then tell you whether any of these IP addresses are seen in any of the traffic or any of the interactions in your environment. So again, I'm pulling in 100,000 of these known bad indicators and verifying them across all the interactions in my environment. And you can see there are no threats there. Show me another tool that can do that for 50 cents a month. Okay. And I will go back to that initial point that I made about adding an Azure subscription into your environment. Okay, so Azure Sentinel does require, as you can see, 52 cents is a cost. You do have to have an Azure subscription in there to cover those costs, but it's going to give you 90 days for retention of your logs, which is beyond what you get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. It's going to give you the ability to do all that alerting, to aggregate the data, to produce Power BI style dashboards and workbooks, to integrate threat analytics, to create your own rules, and so on. So one of the other really powerful things here is if I go to the hunting, you'll see that I've got, 203 individual queries that I can run. Here's the list here. What I can do is I can basically select all those queries, and you'll see I've got a button up here called Run Selected Queries, and that's going to run all those queries right now. So that's going to do active hunting, running all those queries across all the data right now, and it will tell me whether there's anything in here that I need to go and worry about. So the idea with the summary is it's running these queries on a scheduled basis, but I can go into the hunting option here and I can run these on demand as I want. So again, show me something else that you can do that for a couple of cents a month. So this is the smart way to look at security, right? Using the tools, using the machine AI to do the hard work, to do the hard yards and find all of that. You connect all your signals into this, right, using the data connectors. Then you use that to tell you whether there's anything that you need to worry about across your whole environment. And that's exactly what I do every morning. The first thing I look at is generally my production environment to see whether there are any threats or anything that I need to investigate, and then I go from there. So it's the top of the tree. It's doing all the hard work. Can I investigate in cloud app security? Can I investigate the unified audit logs? Absolutely, if I want to, if I need to. But this tool is extremely powerful. And like I said, you can go in here and let me show you the production environment. So what I can do here is again, go in and create these, run these queries ad hoc. So let me go back to Azure in the production environment. And then, like I said, so if I go back into Sentinel and go into this one, which is the production data, and then go into the logs area. Okay, so what I can do is I've got all these queries which I can run in here. So let's go in security. So let's go in here and look at, let's have something that will run here. What's going to give me some sort of information? So let's run the high risk users. So this is going to run a query. So it's a KQL query, didn't return anything, but you get the general idea here. So let me see if I can find something in here as well that might actually give me some results. Okay, so let's try this one. Sorry, delete that and go in here, and where did that go? This one, and run that. Hopefully that returns something. Right, so there's the data, and then what I can do is I can go in and I can create, charts, potentially charts from that information. Now, once I create a chart, what I can do then is I can pin that to a dashboard. This is the great thing about Azure, is I can go in here and create dashboards. So here I've created a dashboard that shows me, for example, things like whether my agents are, running. It will show me the CPU usage for all my machines. It will show you my disk usage for all the machines. All of those signals are being fed in from Defender for Endpoint. So again, to me, this is really the solution for remote management and access without having to go again to a third-party option. It's going to give you far more flexibility, far more capability than you probably have today. The difference is you probably need to build some of this stuff yourself, but that's going to be your point of largely your point of differentiation, I would suggest. So it's up to you, but all these tools are available. They have been available for a while, and you can utilize them to get really, really powerful results. So some resources, you'll get access to this slide deck. The last thing that I'll show you here is, let me bring down whoa, what happened there? What happened here? Okay. That was a bit strange. Let me go and get another production in here. So last thing I will show you before we open up to any general questions is Windows 365. So if I go to windows365.microsoft.com, what I've got here is an environment already set up. So I've created a virtual machine here. So here you see my virtual PC. And if I click the option to connect in a browser, I've got the ability to kick my microphone, my clipboard, and so on. What it's going to do, it's going to connect to the cloud PC that's connected to my environment. If I've got the Windows Hello for Business enabled, it's going to do that for me as well. So again, I'm logging into my cloud PC. In this case, I've set it up so that I do log in manually, just as a little bit of extra security. So now it's going to log into that environment. Oh, it didn't like me for some reason. Okay, so let me try it one more time. Maybe I put in the wrong password. See if it works. It should. Now, let's have a look. That's a bit better. Typed in the wrong password. So now you'll see it's logging into this cloud PC, which I can access in the browser. Now, what you'll notice is when it does display. So let's maximize this. You'll see it looks like like a full screen. Remember, I'm running this in a browser. I can also run this basically from a desktop tool. So there is like an RDP client. Here's the RDP client. I can just double click on that, and that would log me in as well. Now you'll notice here that again, this PC is already set up. It looks like my original desktop. Looks as though it's done some Windows updates in the background for me. And again, if I run this and leave it up and running, I can come back to it at any stage. Now, the big advantage with Windows 365 is going to be that it's a flat fee per month. So there's no consumption cost. It's a flat fee, which means if I run it once, I pay the same whether I use it basically every day. But it applies, all the policies, all my MDM, all of that. It's just like a normal PC that I'm basically, connecting to. And then when I've finished with the session, I can just basically close that browser session out. All right, leave. Okay, so that's how I access it through a browser. But if I went through the option here, which is the desktop client, so this is like an RDS client, you'll see that it'll log eventually, again, back into that machine, and it will be in the same state that I left it. All right, so again, what I'm going to do here, I can put my pin in here. Works, should. So that is going to take you back in. So I can get to that on any device. So I get that onto my iOS, I get on my Android, I get on my Windows PC, effectively wherever I've basically got a browser. So there are 3 different levels of Windows 365. There is the business version, which is what I'm showing you here. Minimal configuration, set up really easy. The next option is the Windows 365 for Enterprise, which gives you connectivity to a local environment. So you can connect to a LAN, site-to-site VPN, add additional Azure resources. And then the third option is something called Azure Virtual Desktop, which is really the higher end of the spectrum, more flexibility, more capability. So you'll see here that I've come back into that Word document where I was before, exactly in that location. So that's the concept behind it to use there. So Azure Virtual Desktop is available, but it is a consumption model. You pay for what you use, but it's largely designed for, the larger, the larger style environments. Okay, so again, really, really powerful capabilities here. The thing to consider about all this is going to be, when you can't lay your hands on physical hardware, right? Maybe this sort of option, is something that you can consider and something that you can offer to customers. Because remember, now at the end of the day, someone's going to be able to walk in and provide this to customers, if they so choose. Right, so those capabilities are going to be available to anybody to achieve that. So remember, do remember that as well. All right, so that's Windows 365. We could do again a whole session on that, but hopefully you've got the idea that there are three options: Windows 365 for Business, Windows 365 Enterprise, more flexibility, but management still largely done by Microsoft, or Azure Virtual Desktop, where you've got very fine-grained, granular control if you so choose to use that. All right. Okay, so Joel's asking, can you bring all your customers' tenant data into your Azure Sentinel? So there are many different ways to configure Azure Sentinel. You can bring the data in, but why would you do that? A better approach is to set up Sentinel for every single customer and just connect to it and display it using Azure Lighthouse. So you can bring the data in, but why would you bother doing that? To me, you would just set up Azure Sentinel for every customer, and then you would just link to it using Azure Lighthouse. So that is a better approach, I think. But if you wanted to, you could set up the customer to send all their data into your tenant if you so wanted, but I wouldn't do that. I don't think it's cost effective. I just set up a standalone environment. So if the customer wants to look at reports or view data, they can. So my advice would be a standalone Azure Sentinel in every customer and link that back to yours as a master to get all that information in one place. All right, so we've got 10 or so minutes. Are there any other questions or particular topics? I haven't seen anybody suggest anything that they would like to see in detail. We don't have a lot of time left, obviously, but I'm happy to open the meeting up to any general questions people may have. We do have the recording still on at the moment, but if you do have any questions, please let me know. I might throw over to George and just see whether he's got any last thoughts or follow-ups for people before we end the session. Let's see if George is out there, or if he's gone off to the bathroom maybe, or he's still on mute. So if he's out there, George, just feel free to interrupt and let us know any last thoughts. So again, in summary, hopefully everybody's got value out of it. The resources will be sent out to you next week. The slides and the recordings will be available to you. Contact Ingram for that. Any licensing questions, please go and talk to Ingram. My advice to you would be to build a offering gold, silver, bronze around Business Premium as your silver offering and E5 as your gold offering. Package that up under your brand and under your name, put in the capabilities, the things like branding, the things like Sentinel, roll that in and go to the customer with that as a package. Don't break it out into individual licenses and individual options. So again, start with a basic package, which is, the licenses, the initial setup, the migration, and then, add the value add. So if you bought the bronze option, then the Azure Sentinel will be an extra cost if they wanted that. But the Azure Sentinel component is an included capability within the silver. And if you went gold, it would also include additional capabilities in it as well. So my advice to you is to move away from branding anything you offer with vendors, right? You should not be selling Microsoft 365. You should not be selling Azure. You should be selling your solution, your branded solution that simply uses Microsoft 365 and Azure and your IP to provide that capability. So when you do a line item on a quote, it's, our bronze package at X. It's not so many licenses of business premium, which the customer or the prospect can then price shop you on. So again, think of moving to a world where you're productizing your own offerings, and the Microsoft capabilities are part of that productization. What you achieve requires Microsoft 365 Business Premium, but you won't get all the facilities unless you buy both. You've got to buy your IP as well as the base product. Now, if the customer wants to bring their own licenses, happy days. Then you can strip the licensing costs out and just provide the services on top at whatever. So you have a SKU. Your silver package would include silver including licensing or silver without licensing. And that's going to give you that flexibility. But again, to me, that's the way to do it. Rather than trying to sell individual licenses and associating or branding yourself with a particular Microsoft solution, because the reality is if you now want to change your customers to Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you've got to go through all those hooplas. Whereas you can do that in your own package. You don't even have to tell the customer. You just change the packaging to suit or the components to suit, and then you provide that to the customer. So again, look at productizing your own offerings, building your own offerings out of the capabilities inside this environment, the Power Platform, the Azure Sentinel, the security, the compliance, the labeling. Look at the value add you can include. So our silver package includes Business Premium plus, basic labeling, DLP, Azure Sentinel, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. To me, that's a much better approach than what I see a lot of people doing is selling a license and then selling a break fix solution on top of that. Right? Anybody can do that. It's easy to copy. So what's the question, the takeaway should be is what's the value add you provide on top of the standard license? If I, as a customer, can't differentiate the value you provide above and beyond the license compared to the competition. So if I think that you're offering the same items as a competitor, who am I going to choose? I'm going to choose the cheaper. So you want to come up with an offering, a service offering, an IP that nobody else can duplicate, that is your unique IP, that stands out from the crowd. But what I see is most resellers are just photocopying what everybody else does and trying to offer it at a price that's cheaper to get the business. Right, that's just the commoditization of the market and a race to the bottom. The real successful people going forward are going to be those who understand the value they can bring to the business by automation, by security, by whatever, and productizing that, not productizing the licenses that Microsoft provide. Because anybody can provide the licensing, but most of the stuff, as you've seen, hopefully is not turned on, is not enabled, is not fully made capable without the help of a skilled IT provider. That's where the value is. Now, myself is, I don't care about licensing. I'd rather you have your own licensing because that removes, the cost factor to me. It's like I just come in and add value, 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 value. And I get paid for that. So in all honesty, I think there's a lot more value that can be done without licensing. It just removes that conversation. But you can, like I said, bundle it as a solution. Don't offer it as a separate offering would be my advice to you. All right. I'll call on George again. Let's see if George has come back. Doesn't look as though he has. So he's just, oh no, there he is. There he is. Goes to the machine. Have you got anything to round up to everybody before we do end the recording?
No, look, I think we're done. I just wanted to mention a few things that hopefully next year will be a better year where we can do some of these events in person. Thank you, Robert, for these events. They've been very valuable. These workshops have helped me and I'm sure helped others as well. So thank you. And thank you for everybody for attending.
Excellent. All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming through. If there are any, please do ask them. But without anything in the queue, why don't we call it